Before we start today's Brain Scratch, we have a call for help from the family of David Koenig. He's missing from Branson, Missouri since February 8th, 2020. His family is organizing some search parties. One of them happened on Wednesday, but we've got a couple more coming up this weekend and on Monday. So if you live around Branson and think you can help, here's the information. Saturday, August 8th, shopping center near Sonic on Fall Creek Road, and they're meeting there at 9:30 a.m. Sunday, August 9th, Price Chopper parking lot behind the Highway 76 Walmart, meeting there at 9:30 a.m. Or Monday, August 10th, Lone Star parking lot, also meeting at 9:30 a.m. If you think that you can show up, give them some more eyes and ears, and help look for David, please do so. I'd really appreciate it. Welcome to Brain Scratch. I'm John Lorden. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is a case that I saw pop up in the news. I didn't think there was going to be enough detail to really cover it. Still at this point, in terms of the investigation, the details are light, but in terms of the discovery, there's a lot of information to cover. So I think it makes sense to start covering it now, and hopefully we'll get some more details that can be a little bit more helpful in the future. But a group of kids go out looking for adventure and come across a body. And no, I'm not talking about the plot for the 1980s film Stand By Me. This story has a few interesting modern twists to it, and we're going to get into it right now. Let's start with a quick stop at an app I'm sure several of you have heard in the news lately, TikTok. And just in case you don't know, I do have an account there. I don't use it exclusively. I'm kind of spread thin already between YouTube and Twitter. Crime Christie has been developing an account there. Of course, that's Christy Arnhart, and she is doing some special videos for Searchlight. Essentially, once a week, she will tell you guys a very quick version of a Searchlight case that we have covered previously, and then there's certain cases we can't cover on the channel with a full-blown video. She's doing one of those a week also, so we're really trying to help raise exposure to cases we have covered previously and some other ones that we couldn't. So if you are on TikTok, please check out Crime Christie. And how does TikTok come into play here? Pretty significantly. But before that, we have to learn about another new application. This one is called Randonautica, I believe. Randonautica. I think they're trying to fuse the words random and Nautica. The world's first quantumly generated choose-your-own adventure reality game. Now, what the heck does that mean? What's quantumly generated? Basically, if you're trying to randomize numbers, a lot of systems that are supposedly random actually aren't. And what they've done here is they've tied into some type of computer web services that are able to truly generate random numbers, and they're using some type of quantum physics aspect to do that. I don't really understand the details at that level, but the belief is because they're relying on quantum generated information, that everything that happens in reality kind of affects those numbers. And is this story actually pointing towards that possibility? Honestly, quite frankly. Let's see what else we can learn about this application. Not a whole lot here at this page, but I got a couple of articles that I selected. Let's start at bustle.com. While some teenagers are building virtual villages on Animal Crossing, others are making chilling discoveries in real life with Randonautica. Randonautica. I'm going to beat myself up before this video is over with that name. And posting about it on TikTok. So that's where TikTok comes into play with this story. And we're going to get into all those details. All you have to do, and this is in the Randonautica app, is share your location, set an intention, and follow directions to a random point that the app generates for you. There, the theory is you will find something relevant to your intention. In the case of TikTok users, these jaunts can lead to anything from realizations about their love lives to unearthing crime scenes, which is what we're going to talk about here today. But mostly, Randonautica explorations are short walks or drives to completely uninteresting places that inspire you to think differently. The app is so random. The second, third, fourth, and fifth time I tried to find a location to explore, I was sent to private properties, roads I could not access, and areas too wooded to find. The app warns users about using discretion when following random points and to avoid trespassing or entering locations that look dangerous. So on the face of it, this type of app, honestly, after reading today's story, I'm kind of interested in it. It seems like an interesting proposition to essentially be sent on a digital goose chase, but there's an aspect of it that kind of ties into spirituality, because obviously it's not like geocaching where you're going somewhere and you know you're looking for a specific box and there's going to be a coin in the box that you could take a picture with or something like that. Here, it's just randomly generating spots for you to go to, and whatever your intent is, if, hey, I'm looking for the answer for my love trouble or whatever, when you get to that location, then you kind of open up your mind with the expectation of, okay, there's some message here somewhere for me about what my intention was. So that's almost a very interesting spiritual aspect to me about this. But let's hear about some other examples. Wired has also written about this recently. One person set out with the intention of seeing something unexplainable, and they stumbled across an empty armchair in a field, while another asked for guidance and ended up at an abandoned mirror telling them it is your time. So that's where I mean there's kind of this quasi-spiritual aspect to it. For many, the appeal of randonauting comes with the opportunity to encounter coincidences and patterns that provide a deeper meaning or insight into real-life events and dilemmas. Now, that's interesting because what happens in this story, I don't know if it's necessarily the intent of the people that were using the app, or if this is some kind of bigger universe thing, maybe the universe wanted this discovery to happen. It boils down to this bag. Now, the TikTok videos are still posted. Obviously, here in this photo, you can see the user's name. I'm not going to show them in today's video. It's very clear that the family is obviously upset. They're going through a very tough time with all this, and they're trying to get the videos taken down. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's already been a pretty significant amount of time since this occurred, but I don't want to kind of contribute to it in that way. The only thing that's important about the videos from kind of an evidence standpoint, we can get from this one still shot. And the thing about that is these are rocks that are obviously right up on the beach, and I'm going to show you a map so that we make sense of all this. But take a look at this suitcase. To me, the suitcase looks completely dry. And as a matter of fact, you can see that the suitcase has been opened. They're using a stick to wedge it open further. The plastic inside, I'm not seeing any beads of water. I'm not seeing any moisture in there whatsoever. So that's really the only thing that I think is important from this footage. There's kind of an unfortunate thing in these are young people that are out there trying to have fun, trying to have this adventure, using this app and posting it on TikTok. And they're not private investigators that are trying to find a body. They're not law enforcement that has come across a body. So the way that they interact around all this is they're kids. They're acting goofy. They're trying to have fun. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, what is this? So it's unfortunate that the video, it's real life. I mean, there's nothing else that could be said about it. This is the real experience. I'm thankful that they were playing the game. I'm thankful they made the discovery. I'm thankful they had the foresight to not try to open the plastic. Basically, as soon as they opened this, they could tell that something was wrong by the smell, and they called police right away. There's an unfortunate circumstance in terms of the police. It looks like they don't actually show up for a pretty extended period of time, but think about what was called in. Hey, we found a suitcase on the beach and there's a bag in it and it smells really bad. Does that point towards some possibilities that the police should be investigating? Absolutely. But does it mean that they're all going to jump in their squad car at that time and they're going to be there 3 minutes later? Not necessarily. But let's continue with the details of this story and see what else we can learn. In an interesting twist, NBCnews.com here has a digital producer by the name of Dennis Romero. And for anyone that has followed my kind of most famous case that I've covered on this channel, I don't want to say her name because it gets videos demonetized. I still don't know why. The guy that released the elevator video, is Dennis Romero. So he wrote up a piece on what's going on here. I didn't even know he was working as a digital producer for NBC News. June 20th, 2020, bags full of human remains were discovered along the shoreline in Seattle, police said Friday night. Officers responded to a park along Elliott Bay on a point across from the city's main waterfront and Pike Place Market. Obviously, if you've ever been to Seattle, you've probably been to Pike Place Market. After someone reported a suspicious bag on the beach, the department said. Now, the TikTok video didn't come out until a day after the police were on the scene. So it's not like they were live streaming while this was all going on. There is also more than one person that was there. There's more than one account on TikTok that was sharing this information. But let's continue here at crimeonline.com. Beach neighbor Stephen Beauty said he saw police remove 2 bags from the scene. There was a police boat and an inflatable boat, and they had a hook, and they took black plastic bags out, he told Como TV. I saw them take 2 bags, is what he said. I'm still not sure how many bags in total they're dealing with at this location. I'm hearing a lot of things that seem to be referencing 2 bags. One other assumption we can fairly easily make just looking at this photo, you can kind of see the scale of a cell phone here and one of the people's hands that's making this discovery. This is obviously a bag that would not fit. There's no way I would fit into this bag. So I think it's pretty reasonable to assume there is some form of dismemberment that's also going on with this case. And with that, there's likely other bags. We're also talking about more than one body here, as we're going to learn as we continue. Over at Newsweek.com, several bags containing human remains were located near the water in the 1100 block of Alki Avenue Southwest this afternoon, the Seattle Police Department said in a statement. And I'm not sure if that's Alki or Alki, but let's take a look at the map here. This is an area that... it's called North Admiral here, but the actual name for this point specifically is Duwamish Head. And this is where the kids were. You can see there's kind of, here's Luna Park. And in some of the footage, you could see the pylons for this pier and this bridge. So the case that they found is basically right around here in these rocks somewhere. Now, especially with the footage, you can see that as they're waiting for police, which is a matter of hours, and it's kind of being reported different ways. The kids are saying it took 3 hours. I saw one officer saying, no, we were there in an hour and a half. I saw another one that said, no, we were there in 2 hours. One of the things that's clear from the footage is at one point, the kids have waited so long, the water has actually come in and is starting to, the whole suitcase is wet. And I believe it actually gets pulled out into the water. One of the kids that's filming says he didn't show everything that he had in terms of the footage because parts were either coming out of the bag or possibly he was seeing parts that were already in the water from the rest of this body drop, which is another thing that we have to keep in mind with this instance. This is obviously a drop location. This is probably not, I'd say 99% sure, not the location of whatever happened to these people. This is just where their remains were taken to try to be hidden. But if we do look at this on a map and kind of considering why would someone have thrown it out from there, I don't know for certain. You know, some of the bridges here, these are probably a bit too populated. Like if you dropped it here in the Duwamish waterway, maybe they would be found too quickly. So I don't know if someone was kind of looking at a map and saying, hey, you know what, we have to get to this point. This is where I could throw them in the water and they would most likely travel out and not be found. I don't know. And I don't know if there was something in their mind in terms of, I don't want to use any major freeway or highway that has a bridge system here because it's likely to have cameras on it or something along those lines. That's one thing about this area that's also a little troubling is I don't know if this park area would necessarily have a camera. I do see bus stops here. We know that buses sometimes have cameras, but I don't know that that would be very helpful if they were just kind of driving by. And we don't really know when this drop happened. So just locking down a time frame for when we should look at footage is tough. But you can see here, I mean, I can understand why an app might actually take you to this area, and it's even a little easier to understand once we read into the history of this area a bit. You've kind of got this landmark, you've got this giant anchor that's there. This area is known for some other things in the past. But in terms of cameras, I don't see a lot of great opportunities. And like I said, we don't have a time frame. So that aspect of this case is very, very tough. So why else do I think this might be a point of interest for an app like that? Let's learn a little bit more about Duwamish Head. Duwamish Head is the northernmost point in West Seattle, Washington, jutting into Elliott Bay. The Duwamish tribe called it Low Point, or base of the point. A large boulder covered with petroglyphs once laid on the beach. From 1907 to 1913, it was the site of an amusement park, Luna Park. Today, Alki Beach Park extends southwestward from Duwamish Head to Alki Point. The area at the head is sometimes called Anchor Park due to the 5,000-pound anchor that's on the site. And obviously, that's one of the most obvious things that you can see about this area. But in terms of a drop point, I mean, look at how the water is at the time of day that this photo was taken. The wash is right here. So it's not too deep at this point, and kind of using this as a point to, this isn't a pier. This is kind of just a very small, I don't even know what I'd call it. It's jetting off into the water, but it's not much at all. It's just a matter of, it looks like possibly 50 feet. So I don't know why someone would think that this was a particularly good location. I'm glad that they didn't figure out a better location, because obviously there's a crime that's going on here, and I want them to be held responsible. But just looking at that, I'm kind of wondering if we could kind of learn something about their personality, or did they intend for these bodies to be found? That's another thing that we have to consider here. Jumping over to the New York Post, let's get some more details. A video posted on TikTok the following morning shows several young people stumbling across a black suitcase on a rocky shoreline and laughing before they realize what's inside. Something traumatic happened that changed my life, TikTok user Henry writes in the caption of the video, which was posted Saturday morning along with the hashtags #crime, #murder, and #Washington. We found this black suitcase. We were joking that maybe the suitcase would have money, but the smell was overwhelming, it states. The footage shows a girl walking over to the suitcase as a pal yells, "Open it, it stinks, yo." She then uses a stick to peer into the luggage, which contains a black plastic bag, before shooting the camera a fearful look. After opening it, a second girl is shown in footage calling police, a caption of the video states. So there's one thing, I've seen some comments saying that the kids didn't open it. Not in Henry's videos, but in one of the other aspects I've seen on this, I actually do think that they opened the case, or that it was opened enough they used an item to unzip it further. Only thing that is somewhat unfortunate about that is with the delayed response time from law enforcement showing up, the water actually got in there and started taking it back out. And I'm just worried that the salt water could have damaged possibly some type of evidence or something. If you had fibers that could have been helpful in this investigation in there, those might have been taken out as the tide was coming in and water was rushing in through the suitcase now that it was open. It's just an unfortunate side effect. I'm not trying to blame anyone. I'm just thinking of it from the evidence standpoint and what was going on around this. And it's just kind of terrible. TikTok teens say they found suitcase filled with human remains while using Randonautica app. Another video notes that officers didn't show up for 3 hours, and that features footage of the tide rising around the suitcase. Eventually, the tide came up and exposed the contents in the bag, reads text across the screen, but I decided to leave those parts out. Later, reports confirmed that several bags of human remains were found at the beach. And once again, we don't get a solid number on how many bags. And I don't know if it's more than one suitcase. There's kind of this assumption from the headlines where I felt like it was 2 suitcases that might have been found, but once we're reading into the details here, I think it's actually just the one suitcase, and then maybe there was several other, possibly the black plastic bags that were out in the water. So they make the discovery. Law enforcement kind of reports their end of it first. Then the TikTok thing hits, and there's a bunch of different articles kind of, is this real? Are these kids really being serious? Do we think this is the same thing that police were reporting? Police eventually kind of step up and say, you know what? Yes, we know about this video. Yes, this is the same occurrence. June 30th, 2020, the King County Medical Examiner has identified the remains of a man and woman found in bags June 18th along the West Seattle waterfront. Austin Wenner, 27 years old, and Jessica Lewis, 35 years old, were both shot to death. So obviously from the outset, looking at a case like this, a discovery being made in this manner, high probability of foul play. Now we know for certain, definitely a foul play situation. This isn't, you know, something happened, these guys had an accident, someone was worried about getting busted for enabling their drug overdose and went and tried to hide the body or something like that. This is, these people were shot, they were killed, they were likely dismembered, they were moved to this area, they were dropped in this area. And the big question for me is still, were they dropped in this area because someone was really trying to get away with this, or were they dropped in this area because someone actually wanted them to be found in some way? And what's going on in their lives? Is there something that we can learn about them that might help us understand this? Let's go ahead and head over to heavy.com. On her Facebook page, which she filled with selfies, Lewis wrote that she had been in a relationship since 2018. Her cover photo is a purple rose. Her page was also filled with GIFs and graphics with inspirational or in-your-face sayings. And here is a picture of Austin. He went by the name Cash or Cash Money. He described himself on his Facebook page as a pistol-off a-hole. He said he went to White River High School and was from Kent, Washington. 3 years ago, he told a friend on Facebook that he was sober, writing, "If I even told you about this last year, you would trip, LOL, but I am sober now too." I did some searches on his name. I did come across one criminal record, but I've also heard that there is another guy named Austin Wenner in this same area. So I don't know if it's this Austin in particular. That charge is specifically for a methamphetamine charge, and I don't know whatever happened with it. But like I said, I'm also not 100% sure that it's tied to this Austin. Definitely from this message on Facebook, we know he's struggling with something because he's talking about being sober. He wrote that he was in a relationship with Jessica Lewis since 2015. Now, if you remember correctly, Jessica said that she's in a relationship in 2018, and I actually brought up the Facebook page just to verify this. It doesn't say who she's in a relationship with, and the people that have, well, they're saying sad. I'm pretty sure these are people that have come to the page since her passing. But I'm not seeing any response from Austin in particular on that message. And I'm just curious about that because, of course, whenever we're talking about a couple that has been taken in this way, I think we always have to consider the possibility, is there something going on in the love life? Is there some other aspect of someone that would want to hurt one of them for some reason? And once we get to the details of the shooting, there's also some other things that sort of point in that direction as well. We do have a comment from one of the family members pretty strongly saying that's not the case here, but obviously this is still an open case, and I'm just trying to put out as much as I can and get all the different considerations out there to hopefully prompt the right person with the right info to call that in using the details in the description box below and help this family. Obviously this case is unsolved at this point. He wrote that he was in a relationship with Jessica Lewis since 2015, and she says she's in a relationship in 2018. I'm not sure if she's posting that because of her relationship with Austin. That's the only thing I'm trying to point out. It's possible she is. It's possible that they were, official on Facebook in 2015. Maybe they had a fight one night and she undid that and then later decided to turn it back on. Something along those lines could certainly be happening, but I'm just also trying to stay open to the possibility. Is she talking about a different relationship? I don't know. Let's see. The year before, he wrote that he had a baby boy. Yes, they are parents. Jessica actually has 4 children, from what I understand. It's about time for everything to slow down and get back on track. The fast life is fun, but too much stress. and frustration time. 2 lacks for real. He wrote that same year, changes in life are hard, just got to move through it and change your old ways. So obviously, sounds like Austin having some challenges. Jessica's Facebook, at least from my look at it, relatively clean. Not a whole lot that I would look at that and say, this is someone that might be struggling as well. Austin's Facebook definitely kind of points in the direction of someone that might be struggling just a little bit more. But this is a couple that were apparently together for a pretty long period of time. Over at KIRO7.com, this is Jessica's aunt, Gina Jaschke. She says that her family can hardly bear the thought of what happened to her loving niece, 35-year-old Jessica Lewis, who was a mother of 4, and her longtime 27-year-old boyfriend, Austin Wenner, whom everyone knew as Cash. The King County Medical Examiner determined that both Lewis and Wenner had been shot days before their remains were found. And we get a little bit of conflicting info in terms of how many days, but we're going to get to that. A fun-loving, affectionate couple, she and Cash were together for 8 years, according to her aunt. FBI profilers told KIRO7 whoever put the remains in bags could have been attempting to make a statement. And that's something that I'm really wondering about too. It's strange because looking at that area on a map, it kind of does look like a decent place for you to try to put something into the ocean to try to have it go off and never be found. But looking at that place at the street level and seeing that that only juts out about 50 feet over the water seems like actually a terrible place to do that. So the FBI profilers' input here might actually make more sense, that they were leaving that somewhere where it actually would be located after a period of time. What I can do is keep this alive in everybody's mind, she said. Somebody knows something. Jaschke said the families and 4 children left behind deserve answers and justice. And by the way, she is working very hard. I can see her commenting all over the place. Any social conversation that's happening on social media on this seems like she's popping up. We're going to share some of those messages with you guys by the end of this. And of course, if you see this video, please know my heart is absolutely broken for you and your family. It's terrible, and it's terrible that the discovery is so gruesome and pulling so much focus here. And that's why I'm also really trying to work hard at including information about who they are as people. And I'm not trying to paint this in some way where we're talking about, 2 people that were angels and never did any wrong to anybody. I don't think that would really help a case like this. We're trying to reach the people that have the right details, and that's why we're sharing things in the way that we are. But to both families, I'm very, very sorry for what you guys are dealing with in this. I want somebody to pay for what they've done, she said, and if it brings any kind of solace to my family, I'll do it, because they're just devastated, as I'm sure they are, and anyone would be that's facing something like this. I want to believe they didn't suffer, she said over at Q13Fox.com. I couldn't believe that was their story, because I'd been trying to look for them. Not in a million years did I think that was them, she said. That raises an interesting point. There's a lot of people that I can see on social media talking about the aspect that, oh my God, they were never listed as missing persons. Why weren't they ever listed as missing persons? And that's kind of where some of the information about the discovery, and actually information from the medical examiners, gives you some insight that might help that make sense. Now, in some instances, I'm seeing the medical examiners might think that they were killed on June 16th. So they're discovered literally 3 days after that. I can tell you, in the best of situations with missing persons cases, well, in the best of situations, someone realizes it within a matter of hours. But in a majority of the situations, it's quite typically 2 days before that missing persons report gets called in. And of course, we've also got that silly thing where, sometimes people hear, oh, we can't file it for the first 48 hours, which is not true. I'm going to be clear about that every single time if you're hearing that escalate to someone else in the department. But for this case, we're hearing June 16th, but I'm also hearing information that might say it's a different date, and we'll get to that. Back to quotes from her aunt. I don't want them to be remembered for the brutality. I want them to be remembered for their humanity and their kindness, she said. Jaschke said the pair lived together in SeaTac and that Jessica had been working for her grandmother, helping to care for developmentally disabled adults. Jessica was also a mother with 4 children. They had their struggles like we all do, and that just shows how much they cared about each other. They didn't leave or anything when things got rough. They always stuck it out together through the ups and downs, she said. I don't think anybody's going to be able to heal fully or even come close to it until these people are caught. Now, while Jessica's aunt is out there making a lot of comments in terms of Austin's family, we get almost nothing. And the only comment that comes in kind of comes in through Jessica's aunt in a statement that Austin's mother gave to her, and then she released to some press. And this is from SeattleTimes.com. His family wishes to mourn their son in private, Jashke said. Though she shared a statement, she said his mother wrote, "He had faith, a big heart, and loved the outdoors, country music, campfires, trucks, dogs, Jessica, and his family," Wenner's mother said. And that's about all the comments that I've seen from his family. So let's get into some other details that are coming out. This is from people.com. Seattle police have said they believe the video was not staged. So this is another interesting aspect because we're talking social media. And people that aren't familiar with the app, with the Randonautica app, there was a version of this story that went out that said, oh, these kids were on TikTok filming stuff, and an app told them to go to this specific place. And all of a sudden you had a bunch of web sleuthers saying, who the heck is programming this app? Like, someone that works there has to have known that the bodies were there. And then you had other people that were saying, well, the kids must have known that it was there, and they're just saying that it was the app, and there's some level of involvement there. Seattle police being very clear, they believe the video was not staged, and the police do not think the teens are involved in any way. Police believe Lewis and Wenner were killed on June 16th, and this article is written on July 7th. Lewis was shot several times, according to the police, while Wenner died from a single gunshot wound. So remember before I was kind of talking about, is there something in the relationship that's going weird here? This is another one of those aspects that leads people to believe that. We have Jessica, also known as Jessie by her family, according to some other information I've seen. We have Jessica shot several times, and then we have Austin shot once. And a lot of times when we're looking at cases like this and you see that level of brutality, it suggests that someone had stronger feelings about the person that they're shooting multiple times. And I think that's why we have so many people that are wondering what else is going on here. To be honest, there's other situations where that could happen. It's dark stuff, but if there was a case where someone wanted to hurt Austin before killing him, could they have done that to Jessica to terrorize Austin before killing him, and then just shot him once and ended it? I don't know. So it's not as clear cut when you're looking at these types of details. And I know because of how we process our true crime information and our fictional crime information, that you see something like that and you remember an episode of some show you watched and it was like, hey, that's a passion killing. There was something that they had to do with Jessica. Maybe. The other thing is we don't know what shot several times means. We don't know if they're talking about, first of all, we don't even know what type of weapon. If it was a .22, being shot several times might make sense because .22s aren't always lethal. If it was a .44 being shot several times, yeah, maybe there's some type of very dark hatred for that person or something that's leading to that. We don't have those details, and we don't know how many shots. We just know specifically, really, that Austin was shot once and Jessica was shot more than once. The investigation remains active, but police have yet to discuss a potential motive for the killings. On the investigation front, this thing just seems very, very tough on the outset because you're dealing with effectively a dump site. You're dealing with a place where their bodies were left. That's not where the murder actually happened. So you have to try to identify where did the actual murder happen, who was involved, and the time frame of all that is really tough. That's one of the things that people are also talking about. How are they getting such a strong determination in terms of when they were killed on June 16th? And I don't think it's that difficult of a determination to make nowadays, particularly with how much we all use our cell phones. If there was some type of cell phone activity that they were seeing that was regular for that person and it runs up until June 15th or June 16th and then stops, that would be a pretty clear indicator. Plus, forensically, I believe that there are some things that they can do to determine approximate time of death. That's one of the other reasons why I was kind of concerned about the salt water getting into the suitcase. But if one of the body parts could have been reasonably preserved in plastic, I think that they could actually do some certain types of tests in terms of decomposition and possible wildlife that's affecting that. That might give them a bit of a solid range, but especially with them kicking out a very specific day, I would think it's probably something more on the investigative front. Something like, well, we know that someone made a social media post on this particular day, and we know that that was actually them because it was a normal type of communication they would have. But like I said, we've got something funky going on with the dates here too. But one of the other things I was thinking about is if they could actually pinpoint the time frame where the drop happened, even if you don't have cameras in that area. Another investigative tool that's being used nowadays is for people to essentially go to Google and say, we've got this particular geolocation, this specific area, and we want to know any phones that went into that area at this specific time. We have a couple cases that are trying that method nowadays. So that could also be something that goes on here. A park area like that, probably very highly visited. So you couldn't have a time frame of like, hey, we know that it was somewhere in those 3 days. Give us everyone that went in there for those 3 days. And just so you know how that works is Google will effectively provide law enforcement with information about certain phones that are in that area, not any identifiable information. It breaks it down to like a randomized number. And then law enforcement will use that information and say this number in particular is showing up at maybe 2 or 3 different locations that we're concerned of, or we know are tied to this case. We need to know specifically who that person is. And then, of course, they have to have a judge that files for that, or they have to take it to a judge and get that approved for any of that information to go. So there's a whole process behind that. And really step one to getting that process is having a good time frame. And I don't know if they have that here or not. That's the other thing. If they do have cell phones on them, maybe they do. Maybe they know exactly when they were taken to that area, if the phones came along with them. I don't know if phones were actually discovered with them or around them at this time. So it's something else to consider with all this. They're not discussing the case in any detail, and they won't say if they have any suspects in mind. So very strong and solid front on law enforcement's end there. And the family is essentially backing that up. I've seen comments from her aunt that's like, hey, look, we're letting them do their work. We're not going to try to, shake the boat. We're not going to leak information around them. We don't want to hurt this investigation at all. And I totally get that. Over at MSN.com, and this is actually a repost of information that came from NBC News. APA, who is the spokesman for the King County Medical Examiner's Office, James APA, said that Lewis died from, once again, multiple gunshot wounds, and Wenner died from a single wound to the torso. They both died June 10th. Now, I can tell you guys every now and then I'll see something like this, and I'm like, well, that date only appeared in one article, and I've got 8 other articles where it said the 16th. Here, I'm seeing it kind of even. So I don't know if this is just a miscommunication. I don't know if APA got it wrong. I don't know if someone wrote this down and they wrote down a 6, and when they looked at it later, it looked like a 0. I have no idea. But for some reason, we have a little bit of a discrepancy in terms of this day. Detective Mark Jameson told NBC News that the teens did not open the suitcase and that police found a handful of other bags containing remains near the water that afternoon. That's interesting because they're not saying in the water, they're saying near it. And once again, that might lead back to the FBI profiler's information that they wanted this discovered. It's strange to me he's saying that the teens did not open the suitcase. They didn't open the plastic, but I'm telling you, some of the other footage that I've seen, I'm pretty convinced that it was mostly zipped up when they got to it. And I'm wondering if it was completely zipped up and maybe that's why the plastic wasn't wet. Maybe the suitcase was in the water earlier, washed up on the rocks, was out there for most of the day by the time they got there, and the outside had dried off. I don't know, but in that photo I've showed you guys and in the videos I've looked at, it looks like the suitcase is almost completely dry on the outside and the inside. The investigation is ongoing, and detectives do not believe this case is connected to any other investigations in the Puget Sound area, police said. Over at King5.com, Gina Jaschke, aunt of victim Jessica Lewis, launched a GoFundMe page in hopes of raising a $10,000 reward. Do you guys hear me reaching for my wallet already? Whether it's out of their heart they turn somebody in or out of the cash, it doesn't matter, as long as somebody is held accountable for this, Jaschke said. On Monday, a Seattle police spokesperson said the case is under very active investigation. I really hope so. There's a lot of information that came out about this all in that early June timeframe, and here we are over a month later, and there literally hasn't been anything. So hopefully that just means that investigators are hard at work and they don't really need to engage media too much to push this thing in the direction they need. I just really hope we're not talking about this case next year saying, oh, look, now they're coming out with some information. They know that one of the cell phones was found here, something along those lines, especially with this case, because there's this strange aspect where you have the TikTok video ultimately going viral in an unheard of way. And the level of attention towards this case because of that video is so high. A year from now, if you have a run of articles that come out and they're like, hey, remember that thing from last year with the TikTok video? Is it going to get attention? It'll get some, but is it going to be nearly as much as right now? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Now we're drifting off into a little bit of what I kind of consider rumor territory. This is from westseattleblog.com. I've read a couple of articles from them. They're doing really good work trying to cover this case as well, but it's really down in the comments that I want to get to something. There's a post here from July 2nd, 2020 from Nino Michaels. They were homeless, but generally from the South Puget Sound area, Federal Way, Kent, Auburn. Austin went by the street name of Cash, ironic as he rarely had two nickels to rub together, and Jessica went by Jessica. The pictures from Facebook are accurate. I knew them, though not extremely well, but well enough to be shocked by this. Cash had a mouth on him, but was generally nonviolent. Jessica was a quiet, perhaps because Cash talked so much, sweet girl who I can't imagine why anyone would want to shoot. They weren't the most productive members of society, but they weren't horrible people. This is very sad. And of course, remember, this is in the comments of something. This could be someone that doesn't know them at all, just winging off the top of their head. But her aunt also comments in this thread, and we'll get to that. WSB, that's the West Seattle blog, replied, thank you. That corresponds with some research I've done that turned up various misdemeanor charges against him. In the one with the most significant paperwork, they were walking together in Auburn in November 2016 when an officer stopped them for crossing against the light. He was found to have a shaved key on him and was arrested. Shaved keys typically are a tool that you would use for auto theft, but interesting that WSB doesn't seem to have found any cases against him that would have been, I mean, they're talking about misdemeanor cases, and I didn't see any cases around like Grand Theft Auto or anything like that as well, so kind of weird about the shaved key thing. I don't know. WSB also says he did have a warrant for a drug violation, no felonies on his docket, all misdemeanors. So Gina Jaschke comments on this on July 5th. Thank you for your well wishes, and my family thanks you too. I know these animals will be caught. It didn't take long to figure them out. So kind of sounds like if she's connected to the investigation, I think they're closing in on this relatively quickly. They will make a stupid move. They always do. And nobody's going to care what they say. What they did is cowardly and barbaric. Oh, you sent a message, all right. Please. Nobody is scared of them. Everybody just sees the low-life, meaningless waste of oxygen these bottom feeders are in this world. The hardest of the hard don't want nothing to do with people so ignorant. The only one with any brains will turn themselves in first to save their skin, if they had any smarts at all, but doubt it. So interestingly, yeah, first of all, it sounds like they're zeroing in on some persons of interest, possibly even suspects. Outside of that, also sounds like we're talking about more than one person that's involved here, at least based on that comment that is supposedly from Gina. I just want to help try to keep all this in perspective. This isn't ABC News or NBC News that's reporting on that aspect. Over at westsideseattle.com, another strange twist in all this, because you've got TikTok, which of course, yeah, they've been in the news for all kinds of other reasons. If you're curious, just run a search on TikTok on your Google News. You'll see what I'm talking about. Chinese video app TikTok unresponsive to requests to remove discovery of murder victims. The video now appears to be in violation of TikTok's stated policy to not maintain videos that are related to homicide. Despite that and repeated attempts to get the video removed, TikTok has said nothing. In a note to media outlets, Jessica's aunt, Jashki, wrote, "I can't get TikTok to remove the video from their website. I flagged inappropriate content, tried to message the creators, sound person, with no luck. We are getting ready to finally lay Austin and Jessica to rest. We would like the video removed from the website as it's already been up far too long. Out of the respect for the families and our loved ones, at this point, it's disrespectful, as everyone is aware of their identities. I've reached out and told the media how much we appreciate the fact that they were found so quickly with their help, and for them to not be haunted or scared, to know Jessica and Austin were normal people just like us, and they were good-hearted and never deserved any of this. Nobody will respond back to the families from TikTok to have it removed immediately. Can somebody please help us? I don't know what else to do. Thank you very much." This aspect I personally struggle with, because obviously this is something, when I was first looking into this case, before I hit this article, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I've got the videos and I'm going to show them. Once I heard this aspect, I decided not to. And I do think that TikTok should probably take the videos down, specifically if they have a policy like is stated here. This clearly has to do with a homicide investigation at this point. Outside of that, I personally think the kids, their faces are all over that video, connected to accounts that show them in all kinds of locations. I mean, it's their life that's on TikTok. It's them sharing their life. There's something in me that wants to also comment on the possibility that that could not be a very safe thing to have out there. If I was family members of these kids, I'd be telling them, take it down. Just take it down immediately. But there's this interesting aspect in terms of these things are super viral now. That's why you put yourself on TikTok. There is another aspect where, you know, Jessica's aunt is worried about, oh my God, they're making all this money on this. They're not. There's no monetization that are built. There's no monetization that's built into TikTok. The only way that you can get money, at least from what I understand about it right now, is if you have sponsorships and stuff like that. And I didn't see any monetization opportunities on the videos that I saw. But I'm also just not sure what the importance of those videos are. But ultimately, you have two families that are in a grieving process. Jessica has children that are quite a bit older, and I'm certain at this point have probably seen those videos. Think of how you would feel. Even for what those videos are, you don't see anything where you can really identify anything in particular. But think of how you would feel knowing that, oh my God, in that suitcase is some part of my father or some part of my mother, and you can't even tell. I mean, it's almost worse in a way. So we did mention the family is running a GoFundMe, and I just wanted to refresh it to see where it's at currently. $2,670, and we can see it's been posted by Jessica's Aunt Gina. And interestingly, if we go down to the comments, the Randonauts donated $200. Hi, I'm donating on behalf of the Randonautica team. So that company actually contributed directly to this. Obviously, if they haven't even heard back from TikTok, I doubt that TikTok has made any type of contribution like that. You guys know me. On behalf of myself and my amazing supporters, specifically through PayPal and Patreon, we are making a donation to this fund as well to get this reward up there. And I really ask that you guys please consider donating more to this. This was created July 6th. We can see they're trying to raise 10,000. They're at 2,670. This thing needs some help. So please share links for the GoFundMe if you can't contribute. And if you can contribute and add even more than we're adding with today's video, please do so. Let's see if we can make a difference here for Jessica and for Austin. One other thing I wanted to touch on before ending today's video is another comment from Aunt Gina, this one showing up at Web Sleuths. First of all, please let me put the end of some rumors for you. There was no love triangle. I guess we have to take that for what it is. She is certainly much more in the know than we are. We know that there's certainly some risk indicators, particularly around Austin's charges, that seem to be possibly related to criminal activities or possibly around some type of drug use. To be perfectly fair, I saw a comment on Jessica's Facebook where someone said that she looked like she was high. I don't know if they were talking about, honestly, I don't know what they were talking about. It was literally just stated like I just told you guys. So is there some aspect to that is being investigated more strongly? Maybe. But once again, we're drawing assumptions with really little information. So I think it's best to stick with what the family's telling us. No love triangle. Yes, 4 children affected. Whether whose or whose, the families wish to keep the children protected and appreciate everyone's privacy in regards to the family. Web Sleuths were trying to figure out, you know, did she have 2 kids before she met Austin and then they had 2 more together or something like that? Gina's saying it doesn't matter. They're all one family. They're all hurting. I want to thank the kids who found them, but now please take the video down. The video is still up. It's just as traumatizing the first time we watched. Please don't continue to leave it for her children to view as well. They are around your same age, so please think about it and do the right thing. And I hope they do think about it. And there's several different aspects to consider there. It's not just comfort for this family, which for me would be enough. Absolutely. These are people that are hurting. Do I think they deserve that at this particular time? Absolutely. But there's other reasons to think about it too. Before I end today's video, I want to thank new patrons Amber Price, Brandy Bacon, and Cindy Kelly. Thank you so much. If you'd like to support the channel, please head over to www.lordandarts.com, where you can support through PayPal, Patreon, or buy merchandise. All of it helps keep me here doing what I'm absolutely moved to do, trying to help these families in these terrible situations. And you'll notice that we do it without injecting YouTube ads into the middle of the videos, which they've literally been doing. I'm hearing people complain about it all over YouTube, that the monetization thing is just, it's like breaking people's experiences with watching YouTube right now. We always take them out of the middle. You might see an ad at the beginning. You might see an ad after the show. That's it. The only way that I can do that is with support from you guys. So please visit lordandarts.com and see if you can help on that front as well. And together, we also do great things like the donation that we're doing here today. Take care, everyone. Have a safe and wonderful weekend. I will see you back here on Monday with a new episode of BrainScratch, Case Cracked, right here on the Lord and Arts channel.